interesting. And this is for your reference, Darren, this is pretty much how I start every single podcast. It ends up, some conversation starts, which is quite interesting. And I almost sit there and I'm like, shit, I wish I recorded that bit. Long and short, to just explain it to everyone, Darren and myself were talking about kids. And Darren has a young son. My partner's sister has an even younger son. And we're referencing sleep. And the bit that I think has got me was the reference you just said about like the decrease in your IQ and short-term memory because of lack of sleep over, do you say two? He's two. We're coming up for two.
He's two. I mean, to be fair, like the last 4 to 6 months have been much, much better. He sleeps well. He's pretty good. So I've had a fairly good experience, but still a good experience has shaved 20 IQ points off me, I think.
Crazy.
That's like a year of kind of interrupted sleep, or not always even interrupted sleep, but it's kind of sleeping with one eye open. It's not deep sleep. You
have to. I guess it's that being. It's not the same. I 100% admit it's not the same. But I have a puppy, and when we first had him, it's that kind of being slightly in a lighter sleep in case he needs to go to the toilet in the middle of the night, hearing him whine and stuff like that. Like he's pretty good now, but in fact, I'd say he's pretty good. He's got a solid bladder.
People say it's not the same. I mean, we had a dog, and it is the same. It's just it's on a very compressed time scale. So, our dog, he was I think 5 weeks to kind of house train. Before that, you're up every 2 hours in the night or 3 hours in the night. It's all the same experiences. You might, frankly, it is kind of all the same experiences. Might be a little bit more powerful if you've kind of, if you're looking at your own face, a little mini you, but it's all the same stuff.
I mean, me and Marshall have similar faces anyway because we're both furry. There's a bit of a connection there. But yeah, I mean, for me, when we got him, the day that we picked him up, I'd had a minor operation the same day. So I had a minor operation in the morning and we picked him up in the afternoon and I was fucked. Like I was shattered, absolutely shattered. And he was sort of crate trained, but taking him out of what he thought was his world and putting him in an entirely new place, new crate, new smells, two weird people that are having to look after him now. He was the first 2 or 3 nights. He was really bad. The first night, he just spent the night basically just throwing up, and then eventually sort of slept. I think 3 or 4 in the morning, and I'd had this operation, so I was just like, shit. I feel absolutely terrible. What have I done? Yeah, and then we basically put an air mattress in this room that I'm recording in, which is like our lounge, because his crates that he stays down here at night, and we put an air mattress in here and slept in the lounge next to the crate. And then over a course of a month or so, we would move the air mattress further away and then into the kitchen, and then slept in the kitchen for a bit, and then from the kitchen to the first, my house is on 3 floors, so then to the lounge, which is on the floor directly above here. And just because we've got a sofa bed and we'd be able to hear him. And then eventually, the first night we got back into our own actual bed was we've won. This is a success.
It's all great training. Honestly, you'll repeat this in, I don't know, 5-10 years time, maybe.
I don't want to.
It'll just take 10 times longer.
Yeah. And right now he is fast asleep on my feet. So yeah. So I will actually probably say who you are, a little bit how I think the first time, I don't know if it's the first time we actually met, but we've sort of spoken to each other on and off for years. And I guess maybe, I don't know, I'm not sure it was the first time we met, but it's definitely one of the most poignant moments I have with you was the National 24 in 2019, when you grabbed my bike before I fell off it at the end of the race. Yeah. And that's basically my most poignant memory of you is you'd be like, "Go, I'll take the bike. Don't worry, I've got the bike, Chris." And I'm just sort of hobbling to a van before I completely spark out. And
I know what it's like at the end of an effort like that, and like you just want to fall off. You don't want to have to lift your leg off.
Yeah.
I was trying to think back and think, because I think we've shared races together.
Yeah,
we haven't had a chance to actually chat much. It's always been, you're on my wheel, or I'm on your wheel. Revolve and things like that.
Yeah.
But it's probably it probably was the 24 we first got to have a proper chat.
And that was
that?
2019. 2019. Because 2020 it was cancelled, and they did it last year. But I don't know how big the field was last year. I don't actually know who even won it last year, but probably some insane ex-army person again.
One of the Arctic lads, maybe. It wasn't Michael, was it? So
no, it wasn't Michael that won it last year, but there was. Again? Would I go again? Yeah, I would. I don't know when, not this year, but I would do it again. The big problem is that I find with that race is for me to feel like I'm doing well in that race, I need to spend months getting used to a TT bike just to feel. Because I mean, the difference is we did it both quite on different setups. You did it on your Thai bike with TT wheels on, basically, and I did it on. I used to have it was a giant Trinity that was bright pink and purple that year, which is a very, very aggressive time trial bike that does not stop very well because the brakes are shit on it, and tire clearances aren't great on it. Like you're not going to get any wider than 25 mil on it, basically. So it's bumpy and it's stiff. And I need, whenever I've done that race, I need to spend like months basically building up my butt strength effectively to get used to sitting on that thing for so long. Admittedly, since I've started working with Cervélo, and I've got a P series at the moment, which is like the I guess more cost-effective time trial bike option they do. Fit 30 mil tires on it. It's great, and it's definitely more comfortable, and it has disc brakes. So it's definitely.
Even then, I did it on the Lazer, my ultra distance bike, and I did it in ultra distance setup on the basis that I didn't have a lot of specific training for it. It's a bit complacent. I thought, what, I've done more than enough 24-hour efforts on this bike back to back over the years. I know I can do this.
Yeah.
But there's a fundamental difference. When you're doing your ultras, you spend, I don't know, 60-70% of the time on the bars, and crucially, you get some breaks. You sit up to eat. You climb some stuff. You get out the saddle. I didn't really factor that in. So 12 hours in, even on my kind of like quote unquote soft setup, I was just broken. My neck gave way. So, 12 hours in, I was like, this not going to do another 12. It's just not going to work.
It is a relentlessly hard race. Like, I don't think people, as you say, there's so many other 24-hour races out there, but I don't think people fully appreciate how hard that race is, because people are drilling it as well for it. Like, people are racing hard. Like,
you want to be competitive, it's one for absolute specialists. Like you said, you're not going to get into that sort of top 3, top 5 unless you are really focused for it. It's such a specific thing.
Yeah,
I thought what I was doing was specific enough, all that background I've got, but it just wasn't. The specificity, as Coach Kenneth will tell you, absolutely everything.
I mean, I came 9th and 7th and a DNF every one I've done, which I'm pretty damn proud of that. Like, that DNF was it was 2017 when it was a horrific, like freak thunderstorm.
Wet, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I got like pneumonia, so kind of fine with that. And then 2000, and then the next year was the 7th, and then the next year was 9th, but I went further coming 9th than I did coming 7th.
I remember 2019 was a big year, wasn't it? Big numbers.
There was, the conditions were great, but the field was ridiculous as well in 2019. It was a super strong field. But yeah, I mean, I reckon I know the strategy. I know how to race that race. I know how to train for it. I know how to deal with the shit points in that race very well. The worst bit is that night circuit. The night circuit's just horrible because it's quite technical, and you go through the farm bit where there's just smells like shit. I don't know what animal shit it is, but there's a section on the night circuit which just stinks of shit. And it's just, there's quite a lot of turns in it. Like, I much prefer the other circuits on the race, which are just out and backs, basically. For people's reference, on the National 24, there's 3 circuits, and as you're going through the race, actually there's 4 circuits, including the finisher's circuit. But as you go sort of through the race, the marshals direct you onto certain circuits, and it's generally to do with what circuit you're on is dependent on the leader of the race and where their position is, but also it's very much done on like what roads are busy, what roads are quiet, that kind of thing. And they have also, like, in some of the races I've done, they've like cut off part of one of the circuits, one of the out and back ones, for example, or I think one year they just didn't even use one of the out and back ones. So it was only 3 circuits. And then I think it's normally the last like 4 hours or so, you then ride back up to this finishing circuit, which is, the ride back is not fun. It's really hilly. And then you get to the finishing circuit, and the finishing circuit is basically a square, and you kind of and basically there's a marshal on each of the corners of the square. And say you start at 1 o'clock and then you finish at 1 o'clock the next day, you're kind of, the marshals, as you go through, they're taking your time and your number down, and then eventually basically your time is taken from the point the marshal you get to before 1 to the marshal after 1. Your time is somehow magically calculated from there. I have no idea how they do it, but
I remember at the end of the race, because I stopped early, I kind of went over and I caught up with the guys, and we were trying to figure out, we were kind of crunch the numbers and figure out where your last checkpoint would be, and where you would be stopping, where you would need someone to grab the bike for you. And we got it right in the end, but complicated maths to try and figure it out.
Yeah, you got it. I thought I would. Pardon?
Were you figuring it out on the bike, or were you just head down and just kind of stop when you're told? Were you kind of pushing to try and make the next marker and get?
Yeah. So in 2018, I was pushing to get to the next marker every time. In 2019, I was way more fucked than I was at the end of 2018. Because in 2019, I wasn't certain if I was going to start it, because I've been hit by a van not long before the race. So it was kind of a play it by ear, see what happens. And I was really feeling the effects of that for the last 8 hours, where basically I've been hit by a van. I had like a massive hematoma on my right hip. I had bruising all up my right arm and right side, which no one knew about really, but I was all completely bruised and scuffed up on my right side of my body. So being on the extensions was quite painful. So the last 8 hours, I was really struggling. So that's like kind of a couple of laps on the main circuits, and then the ride up to the finishing circuit, and then the whole finishing circuit. And then, I was really struggling in the finishing circuit. And I think as it got closer to 1, I started easing off the pedals because I wanted to finish where everyone was. But in reality, I probably could have got another marshal or 2 across and then just ridden round. But I think in my head, I was like, I'm kind of happy. I know I've got a top 10 again. Like, I'm kind of happy with that. I did better than I thought I was going to do. So, and I knew I'd gone further than I'd gone in the previous year. So I was kind of like, okay, I'm quite content with that. I'm fucked.
Yeah,
and I don't
to be happy with,
yeah, I didn't think I was going to gain a place, so I didn't really see the point. And yeah, I mean, you do. I tend to. I'm during that race. I'm trying to calculate things quite a lot in my mind, like how I'm going to pace it. I think every year, 18 and 19, I've definitely done the tactic of riding really fucking hard for 4 hours at the start because I'm fresh. And it's a tactic that we talked about doing for 2018. It's for the first time we tried it, and it worked really well. Basically, just going super hard for the first 4 hours and then just tapering back, because not only is it like taking advantage of the point of being fresh, and we've learned over the years that I could do that, and my level of staying fucked stays quite consistent. It doesn't seem to get any worse.
Okay. Interesting. You tested it the other way. You tested like a flat effort.
Yeah, we've also done it as a negative split. So what we did in 2018 was we did 4 hours really hard, rode it a lot tamer until the last 4 hours, and then rode the last 4 hours really hard in 2018. And in 2019, the plan was to do the same, but I couldn't sustain it because I was just hurting too much by the end. And then I've done like consistent efforts for like the 12s or the 100s, and I don't think it really. I think I could do better by going harder and then tapering down a bit, or doing it as a negative split rather than being consistent. But I think that's just because I can know how to suffer, to be honest with you. Like, I kind of seem to be able to deal with it quite well. But
it's the technique I've been using. Like, I've been trying not to, but it's what I've always done as well.
Yeah.
Like, again, like I tell myself, my superpower is an ability to suffer. So I just and I'm way more ambitious than talented. So I go out like a stabbed rat, and then just try and hang on, But then, I ride with like Jasmine Muller, and she's much more methodical. And Jasmine Muller, like a previous world 24-hour time trial champion, really accomplished ultra distance racer. And she's much more disciplined, about maintaining a good solid and consistent pace. I mean, it works really well for her, and I've tried to adopt some of that. Over the years, ego gets in the way. I love going fast. I'm just going to go out and smash it, and then it catches up with you, and and then it's a struggle. I just sort of bury myself, and then I'm like, it's okay. I'm tough. I can just kind of grit my teeth and just tough it out. But
the problem I found both times was and it was definitely a problem, is that I hadn't really figured out what was the best TT saddle for me. And so at the end of 18 and 19, I was really uncomfortable on the bike. I just dealt with it. I just sort of sucked it up and was like, man, it's only 24 hours. Like, it's fine. I mean, take away the fact that I couldn't sit on a bike for like a month afterwards. But I think I found a saddle now, because I do all of my turboing that I do it on a TT bike. Because I've always got the muscle memory and the position memory there, so I could just go and do TTs. And for me, I think it's really helpful. But I've like ummed and ahed. I've been changing saddles. I've tried I think, what was the one I tried before called Dash? I used a Dash saddle for a while. Good for short course TTs. They're like handmade, beautifully made carbon saddles, really flipping expensive. They're basically like ISM saddles, but narrower. So if you've got larger thighs, they stop having a lot of ISM saddles. I tried them, and I was just getting like really bad thigh rub.
Yeah, I struggle with those as well.
But then the Dash one is the same style, but narrower, and they seem to work a lot better. I got on quite well with it, but not great, because it's quite a stiff saddle, and I got the softest one they do. And then I moved to this one. I can't think of what the name of the brand is, but their thing is all like about being the secret saddle club or something. And I've got on really well with it. I can't remember. I'll let you know what it is separately, but I can't.
Yeah, definitely. I still haven't found 8 years in, and I still have not found a saddle that agrees with me.
Yeah, I
So,
think
I don't think you probably weren't following me or aware of me in like 2016 when I was doing the TCR the first time.
yeah.
And I took it really seriously. I went and got a bike fit. I had a saddle pressure mapped, and then I got on okay. And then I did a test ride. I went down to Bilbao, and I thought, you know what, yeah, that's all good to go. And then day 2 of the TCR, and I'm in absolute pieces. So bad. I set up a Twitter account for Darren's ass, so I I was just venting and whinging and grumbling because I didn't want to spend my entire race whinging myself, and this sort of like mental coping strategy, a bit of disassociation. I kind of thought, well, what would my ass say to me if it had a voice? And it was some blue language, and that kept me going. So while I was struggling, I was mouthing off using Darren's ass on Twitter.
That's a great way of doing it because you're an outlet to vent about stuff. And I think what a lot of people maybe don't understand on the ultra distance stuff as well is you need to find ways to outlet those frustrations. You really do. And it can be, that's a great example of how you could do it. Like for me, I normally distract myself by like counting weird shit. Like it could be goats, for example. It could just be counting goats. Or I think at Badlands, I like resorted to like trying to spot out rocks that look like interesting shapes as just a way to distract my mind at points. And like it's you have to find these things that distract you from what you're doing on those kind of stupid ultra distance stuff. So doing that like a Darren's Ask Twitter is a great shout.
And for me, I got three strategies that come to mind. One is humor. Like when I'm suffering, like being able to kind of find some humor and stuff, that helps a lot. Another one is this sort of mental maths, like looking at average speeds and distances and when I'm going to get to this point and that point. That keeps my mind occupied.
Yeah.
My favorite one actually is I don't know if other people think like this, but I make little movies or like I write my blog in my head, like really detailed sort of storytelling in my head about what's going on or what tomorrow will be. Especially with music, I'll listen to a piece of music and it will just kind of it's almost like creating a music video for that piece of music based on the story that I'm living, in that moment.
Yeah.
That helps. Yeah, that helps me. I sort of get into that flow state quite well when I'm doing that sort of stuff.
Yeah, you need to find those things to focus. I agree with the mental map side as well. Like definitely do tons of that kind of thing when I'm doing it. The saddle brand is called Gebomized. If that's of any interest. And it's spelled GEBIOMIZED. And their website is literally secretsaddle.com. And the TT one they do is called the Stride, which is what I've been using and been really impressed with. It's not cheap saddle. I tried
I would pay all the money in the world for a saddle that doesn't hate me.
Yeah, exactly. So they do two different whips. I can't remember what the whips are, but they do two different whips. They're a German company. I tried the wider one, and I just felt a bit wide. And then I tried the narrower one, and I've been using that since, and it's been really good. They do a TT one and a road saddle, but I found out about them through like a local bike fitter to me, and he was just like, "Give it a go, let me try one for a while."
Do you use that for ultras or just for TT?
I would probably I've used for ultras is the Pro Stealth Gravel edition. So the Pro Stealth saddle I get on really well with that anyway. They do two whips as well. I think I use the wider one, ironically, of the Stealth. But it's just pressure relief channel saddle, like short nose. Loads of brands have done it, but the gravel one is the same shape but has thicker padding, and basically the pressure relief bit is actually filled in, So there's still a pressure relief channel, but it's kind of filled in. Then the reason why they did that was to stop like mud and shit spraying up through the gap. Okay. It's quite clever. But so the Stealth gravel is what I have on my gravel bike. I've got that on the gravel bike, I've got it on the mountain bike, and I've got it on the Caledonia 5, which is like, I guess would be my ultra distance road bike as well. So I've got it on all three of them. And then on like the more racy bikes, I've just got the standard Pro Stealth, basically. Sit-wise, they feel very similar, but just the additional padding, especially for ultra stuff, feels quite good. But I would definitely consider the Secret Saddle one for long distance stuff as well. Actually, it seems to work quite well for the PT bike. Yeah,
the trick in trying to find something that works, on the extensions and then upright as well, because you spend so much time doing both. Even if you're trying to, I mean, you shoot for like a really decent split of time in the extensions, but you're still going to spend a lot of time upright on that thing, and a couple of days in, it needs to be right.
Yeah,
it'd be nice to kind of just concentrate on your legs hurting rather than your ass hurting.
Yeah, I mean,
very jealous of people who've got their magic saddle already.
Same. The saddles and shoes are things I struggle with more than saddle, but I think that so I didn't use the gravel version of the Stealth for Badlands, and I kind of wish I did. I didn't use it because I just didn't have one. And I wish I did, because it just has a bit more comfort and padding in it. But I used the gravel edition for the recent bikepacking trip I did in Spain. I had no issues at all, like absolutely fine. But shoes is something I've struggled with for a long time. Like, I have tried everything, every brand of shoes. And the problem I have is I've got big, wide, and flat feet, which is like the three deadly bad trinities in shoes for cycling. So I've done you name it, and I've probably tried them, to be honest with you. The only brand I haven't tried is Bont. So I've actually
really, that's the first one that came to mind for wide feet.
Yeah, I haven't tried them because when I first got into cycling, I had a pair of Bonts and I didn't get on with them. But they've changed a lot since then. And purely because of that, I had them like sort of blacklisted on my list of shoes. But I ordered a set of road and a set of gravel ones in November, which is nuts. They arrived today. And I've like slipped them on, and they feel like they'll be good. So it'd be interesting to see when I've kind of set them up and properly used them.
You have proper orthotics in there, like custom insoles.
Custom insoles, like everything you can think of, I have in my shoes in some way, shape, or form.
I got lucky. I mean, I've got sort of narrow feet, so I went straight for the Specialized, the S-Works 6, I think it was at the time. Really, I mean, just a perfect shape for me. And then, I need insoles as well, because I've got relatively sunken arches after the knee surgery. Lots of years walking around all weird. My feet are a little flat as well, so I need quite a lot of support there. But and they're great in that you can, like the current ones, you've got that that little kind of panel you can switch around in the cleat bolts, so you can slide them really, really far back for like a midsole cleat position, which is great for a lot of things, but it's really great for ultra distance, where try and limit the amount of damage you expose your Achilles to.
Yeah, exactly. I always have my cleats slammed back, always have done, and it just seems to it works for me in a time trialing sense, in a long distance sense, and I just feel more comfortable that way. And I feel like your power transfer is way better being more in the center of the foot. If it's further forward, I feel like I'm losing power through my toes and stuff. Like, surely there's a better.
I'm actually switching so I've got a second pair of shoes now, and I'm going to set one up more traditional for crits, because I've always had this kind of nagging doubt. I feel like removing the calf and the Achilles, I've lost some of that power that I could put through if I was prepared to, really kind of expose my calves and Achilles. So I'm going to have one set of shoes for crits and one for ultras. But we'll see. I mean, I've spent so many years now with midfoot cleat position, it might feel just too strange.
Be interested.
I'm gonna go for a bike fit in the next week or two and get them set up. So
yeah, it's a good shout. Then the other thing, like as you sort of alluded to briefly, is you have done TCR, you've done TransAm, you've done several 24-hour races that we've, been at both at the start lines of. Revolve is another great example, which is a 24-hour race around Brands Hatch. You'd think being a motor car circuit that it would be flat. Fuck no, not flat. It's really fucking hilly. And I remember, I think the first time I started, following what you were doing, I think it was when you were doing TransAm. That's the first time I really remember and following that story. And it looked mental. Your experience of that seemed to be mental.
Well, yeah. To be honest, pretty much every ultra I've done has been frankly a mental experience. Possibly Paris Paris as an exception. That was relatively, by kind of ultra distance standards, that went relatively uneventfully. But yeah, all of my other adventures have definitely had moments.
What's been the worst thing you've had to deal with?
The worst thing I've had to deal with, probably on TransAm, frankly. So I'm a third of the way through, and I had a major mechanical that just was not going to be fixed roadside. So I'm Jay Laverack, who I ride for. Ollie, the owner, he's like one size lower than me, and he was getting ready for TCR that year. So his bike was kind of set up. So they quickly kind of got that to the airport, got it on a FedEx 24-hour express to where was I? Like Jackson Hole, basically, long story short, FedEx dropped the ball, and this 24-hour turnaround turned into 8 days. So I'm just sat in Jackson, just watching my race get away from me. Not knowing, every single day it was like, it's definitely coming today, sir, definitely today. And 8 days later, it finally arrived. So I'd ridden for 8 days. I'd ridden. This is so what I talked about before about being sort of like negative split. I measured it, and I was feeling really, really, really good. Like 8 days in, I think I was sitting sort of around top 10, maybe just outside top 10. But super, super fresh. And then sort of to watch the race get away. And I'm running out of time. TransAm's it's a long ride. It's 6,700 kilometers. Best will in the world. That's best part of 3 weeks. For the super quick guys. I just didn't have that sort of time to spare. I didn't have 8 days to spare. So I'm thinking, shit, what can I do? And in the end, like the answer was, rather than to sort of quit there, knowing that I can't finish this. I scratched from the race because I was going to take a plane from Jackson, jump back in sort of roughly where I was in the field previously, and then outside of the race, just smash it, just unleash the fury. But that was insanely hard. If you imagine how you feel like, like 8 days after 8 days after doing the 24 or a big ultra, it's like that. Everything's swollen, everything hurts. You're deep into the recovery process, and just trying to ride like I was fresh. Expectation did not match reality. Let's put it that way. So it was hard, and I went from the first third of the TransAm is in the Rockies. It's west to east. So you start in Portland, and you're up in the mountains. Like the first pass. What's the name of the first pass? I can't get there now. The first major pass basically opened the day before. Literally the day before that, they haven't cleared the snow. It's super hot. So it's I think it got down just below sort of -3, -4, and then then, you know, you're in Jackson's sort of coming out of the Rockies. And then you've got this middle third, which is the plains, Kansas and Kansas and places like that. Very, very flat, a lot like sort of, you know, middle of Australia, you know, go
Flat and roll.
yeah. And then the last part, where I flew from Jackson, where it was cold, into St. Louis, and bang, just like that, 40 degrees, you know, maximum humidity. Yeah, I mean, it's just insane. And then, yeah, the last third of the course, you know, it's really rolling stuff, but the heat and the humidity is so oppressive. You have to, well, you kind of near the end, like Kentucky and Virginia, it's so bad. You have to stop every hour or two to kind of dump some heat. You know, you jump into a McDonald's or something. But the Americans, they like their AC at like 17 degrees. You know, and when you're dripping with sweat and fully exhausted, you go in and you're straight into shivers. You know, you're on borderline hypothermia, and then you come back out and you're all wobbly, and then 5 minutes later, the nice ice cold water that you put in your bidons is boiling again, and rinse and repeat for another few days until you get to the finish line.
It's one of the things I really remember about Australia was how, like, Francis was like, oh, you know, I remember there's one point we'd gone and stopped and got some food in this place called Iron Knob. I just remember it because of the name.
I know it from Deepak.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a sketchy place. It feels a bit sketchy, but that day we had a sandstorm all day, and it was incredibly humid. It was incredibly hot, and it, like, you know, like old video games where they're basically trying to load stuff in the background. They just put like sand or sandstorm or stuff like that, something to like block it off. Right. That's what it was like. You couldn't see, like, maybe, I don't know, 200 meters down the road, basically. And it's just this orange screen in front of you. And anyway, we had a headwind, of course, the whole way. We had it the whole ride, but we had this like stonking headwind, this sandstorm thing, which was like being in a tumble dryer or something like that. And we turned into this Iron Knob place, and it was a very distinct right turn. And Francis, bless him, is a smaller character than me, smaller build, smaller in height, smaller in stature. He's not good in headwinds. So I was doing a lot of riding on the front because it does affect me, but definitely not to the same level as it would affect him. And then he'd come on the front to give me a breather so I can get some food and sort of chill out a bit. And then as soon as he started to feel fucked, which was a lot quicker than it was for me, I'd go back on the front. Anyway, we this very distinct right turn towards Iron Knob. I like flicked to get Francis to go on the front because I was fucked. I was dripping with sweat. I'd like ridden on the front for like a couple of hours, and I needed to eat, trying to drink what was like drinking a hot tea or something. And anyway, I flipped my elbow for him to come through. He came through and basically stopped because of the wind. And I was like, okay, please just try and ride a little bit so I can at least eat something, and then I'll come back on. And he did anyway. And we turned into Iron Knob, and we found this really weird, like, restaurant, motel-y kind of place. And it was basically like this huge hall. And in this hall was like just random tables and like old like slot machines and like pinball machines. And there's a little bar in the corner. And we bought probably about, I don't know, 8 bottles of various drinks, from like Powerades to Cokes to like water, just downing them. And then we ordered some food, which was just like stuff that had been chucked, frozen food that had been chucked into a deep fat fryer, because that's all they had basically. And then got back on the bikes pretty quickly. And Francis put a can of Coke in his back pocket. He's like, I'll save it for later. And I was like, there's no point saving that for later. It's going to be boiling. And he saved it. And I think within 10 minutes, he went to go and get it out of his pocket. And the whole can was boiling. Like was struggling to hold it because he was feeling it on his back, how hot it was. And I think he ended up just like launching it. So on most of the big like highways in Australia, they have these like trucker bays, which have these massive bins, which have got like a design so you can throw stuff in them from the truck. So we're just looking for one of them for him just to catapult this can into in the end. And those kind of temperatures with the humidity and everything is horrible. It's horrible to ride in.
That was way hard. I mean, to be honest, I prefer hot than cold.
Same.
I can tolerate it. Like compared to other races, I seem to tolerate the heat better than I do the cold.
Yeah, same.
Definitely for sleeping, like trying to bivvy in the cold just doesn't work for me. It's a disaster. But the heat, no problem at all.
What would you? I think I'm similar in that sense. Like the Badlands, the hottest day was 52.8 degrees, something like that. But at night that day, which is bonkers, and then mad, and at night it was that day I think was 26.
Yeah,
like that. And I'd like settled down. My dog is kicking me. I'd like settled down to like get some sleep. I think I'd ridden for 18 hours, something like that. So I'd settled.
Your audio is cut out, mate. No. I think it's your mic. I can hear myself a little.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I got you now.
Apparently my AirPods decided to connect, which are upstairs. Weird. So anyway, I think I've been riding for like 18 hours, and I decided that I needed to get some rest. I was shattered, and I was, salty, sweaty mess. And I bumped into basically, I'd run out of liquids climbing up to the Cala Alto telescopes, which is like the highest point in the race. You do it off road. It's pretty nuts. Got up to there, and I'd run out of water like 2 hours before, and I'm hunting for water. I was with a couple of other guys. I couldn't find any water anywhere. Went off the route because there's a church. Well, there's normally a tap or a fountain at a church. Church was closed. Rode back up the hill. Anyway, got to Cala Alto, which is where the telescopes are, and like started hunting around all the outbuildings to try and find a tap. Found a tap, turned it on, didn't work. Anyway, got on then from the Cala Alto, you start descending. So I started descending down, and about halfway down the descent, I found like a little fountain, and Matt Faulkner caught up with me, and the pair of us just stood there, just like plowing down water for I don't know how long it was. And then we ended up kind of like riding into the town, sort of roughly the same sort of time as each other, eating some food, and then riding off into the night. And within about 10 minutes, both of us were like, yep, I'm going to get some sleep now. So he went off and set up somewhere. I carried on a little bit further and set off on another like bit. And I think both of us tried to sleep, and both of us, after about an hour and a half of trying, both just went, fuck it, let's carry on. And it wasn't just it wasn't just from like the heat, with it being like 26 degrees. There's mosquitoes buzzing around your ears, which is like, that's just an annoying noise anyway. And then I rode for, I think it was close to 30 hours in the end, and got myself in like a hotel room and had a proper night's sleep. And I'm
a big fan of hotels rather than bivvies where you can, unless it's perfect conditions. For racing, yeah, I'll take a hotel.
You need that to be able to recover. You really do, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, you're not going to get quantity, so at least get quality if you can.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the race, like it's just not worth it for me. I mean, everyone's different. If I got a few ex-military friends who can literally sleep anywhere. That's great. That's a skill I'd love to have, but I work with what I'm given, and I'm a delicate sleeper, so I'll take a nice soft hotel bed.
Yeah, and I think as well, to be a lot of these kind of races, to be competitive, it's the way that people are doing it now, because it allows you to have a lighter setup.
Yeah. I mean, if you're, it's still tricky. So even though I would choose hotels, I still carry emergency kit enough to kind of get by, so that I still have options if I want to. Like TransAm, for instance, hotels, hotels are great, but there's large stretches where you go without motels and things like that. So sometimes sleep in post offices. It's kind of unique to, well, I don't know if it's unique to the US, but in the races that I've done, it's fairly unique. But all these 24-hour post offices are unlocked. They've got heating, which is great, but the lights are on 24/7, which is less great.
Yeah.
But if you've got a floor there, you've got some sockets you can use. It's kind of perfect.
Yeah. What would be your tip for the perfect anyone that's thinking about doing some bike packing? Because I get asked this quite a lot. What would be your tip on what would be the most ideal bivvy spot?
Ideal bivvy spot? It's a hotel. It's a hotel. I mean, if you can be disciplined enough, because they're slow and they're comfortable, and comfortable can be tricky. It's hard to get out of bed. It's a nice shower. You get a bit luxurious and take your time. You need to be really disciplined, and where you can, you need to be absolutely insistent that no, the bike's coming in the room with me. Because the last thing you want is kind of it has to go in the garage or it goes in this cupboard, and then you get up at 4 a.m. to get a head start, and it's all locked and you can't get to it. But I mean, for me, the best bivvy spots where it's worked for me has been it's more about good conditions, like warm temperatures. I have my best kind of not even bivvy experiences, but sort of power nap experiences. I know I only need sort of between 12 and 25 minutes, and that gives me a massive boost. So sometimes if I'm feeling that, usually sort of mid-afternoon, if I'm doing multi-day stuff, I feel it coming. I'm like, right, go now. And I put the bike down. I kind of put my legs up on the bike, elevate that. I'll bang some caffeine down, and then close my eyes, off I go. And then by the time the caffeine's kicking in, I'm up and ready to go anyway. Those work really, really well. But I've got a lot more stories of bivvy spots that just haven't worked.
Well, what's been the worst bivvy spot then? I've got a good one.
There's been some stinkers. There's a weird one, end of the TransAm, where it's late. It's I don't know, 3, and I'm thinking I'm going to try and ride through the night, and it gets to 3:30, and I realize it's a bit ambitious tonight. So I'm looking around. I know there's a fire station that will have that's open to cyclists doing this route. So I'm sort of sneaking around. It's really, everything's dark. It feels like it's properly deserted. So but still, it's a bit creepy. So I'm sort of sneaking around. There's this sort of slight feeling that I shouldn't actually be there.
Yeah.
So I'm quietly sneaking around in case there are people sleeping there. I don't know if people are anyway. So I'm exploring, and I'm kind of, I open a few doors, and I can't find anything. Can't find any beds and stuff like that. So I ended up sleeping on a medical gurney in a broom cupboard, which was that was a bit trippy. And then when I kind of I get up and I'm getting ready to go, and I open this door, and the lights pop on, just automatic lights, and there's there's loads of firemen sleeping, and one of them sort of quickly is like, what's going on? And shit, close the door, real panic. And then I'm just trying to find my way out, but I'm so sleep drunk. And I opened another door, and I see there's a full dorm, comfortable beds, it just looks amazing. And I've just spent 2 hours on this uncomfortable gurney in a broom cupboard somewhere. Other ones. I've had a lot of aborted ones, nothing too exotic, but bus stops where it's just not worked. We had you talk about headwinds, there was one in Croatia where honestly, I woke up thinking that this concrete bus shelter was going to fly away. The winds were so fierce.
Bloody hell.
Just too uncomfortable to sleep. And then the wind was properly insane. So crosswind for most of it, which I would have loved a headwind. I would have preferred that over the crosswind. It was so dangerous.
Yeah.
And there was one point where you go around this like kidney-shaped bay. So you're generally heading south into this like a crosswind, easterly crosswind off the Bora Mountains, the Bora Wind rather. And you kind of go around this bay, and there's so many moments where you have to just sort of leap off the bike and sort of legs wide, brace yourself, try and hold on, because you literally just sort of getting blown sideways.
Yeah.
Cleats not really on the floor and stuff. And I got to the end of this bay and I dived into a concrete bus shelter again. And I thought, I mean, this is just mental. This is just not rideable. It's insane. And then one of the other racers, Jane Wadsworth, who I think it was their second TCR, showed me what a proper badass looks like. she just came like slow, but she was just walking a bike around, like she just wasn't going to stop. So I'm like, God damn it. So I'm shamed into getting going. And I jump on the bike and we go around a little corner, and then all of a sudden I've got a tailwind just for a real short stretch up this hill, sort of 5%, so like Box Hill. And like full system weight, my rig, everything I'm carrying, about 100 kilos. I shit you not, I didn't pedal, and I'm being blown up this hill that's the same pitch as Box Hill. Get to the top, and I just giggle into myself, and then obviously we turn a corner, and you're straight back into this crosswind again. And next few hours were just something else.
It's funny how you always remember those really shit moments. I think of in Atlas Mountains, there's two really bad bivvy spots that stick out to me in my mind. I've found some good ones definitely in the past. Actually, not even the Atlas Mountain ones isn't that bad. The Silk Road Mountain Race one was really bad, where the bivvy spot was halfway up. So it was the first day of Silk Road, and there was a storm incoming on Kegati Pass. And the choice was, do you push through the storm, potentially quite dangerous conditions, get over the top, or do you just accept it, like it's getting into night, like you're going to be pushing over the top in the dark? Or do you accept it, let the storm go through, and camp out for the night? And I was doing it as a pair with Rob Quirk, and we both were like, I think it's probably safer to camp out for the night. So we did. We basically took a tarp, and we had bivvy bags, sleeping bags, like quite good winter rated sleeping bags. But we had a tarp and bivvy and sleeping bag. And the tarp, we basically like strapped it up, used our front wheels to like hold it open and up, and effectively spent that night freezing our tits off as a snowstorm came in, and literally watching us getting snowed underneath it, and just thinking, was this the right decision to stop here, or should we have carried on a bit more? And I think in hindsight, actually, it probably was the right decision, because I don't think that was the first edition of Silk Road. I think only like 4 people got over the pass.
I remember following that one. That looked intense. I think like everyone, I was caught out by how tough that race was. We all thought it sounded tough, and then it is tougher than I think it looks in the first place. And then certainly for that first edition, you didn't get any breaks with the weather.
No, the first edition was insane. And then the other one that always comes to my mind, which was there's one that was a great success. There's 2 other bivvy spots. In fact, it's 3. I could keep going on. There's 3 that I could think of. I'll do a good one, and then I'll do a bad one, then do a good one. And then the good one was in Silk Road as well, where we basically, there's loads of like dried rivers, and I've always thought dried river beds are pretty good because the ground is soft. You can kind of get off the road quite easily. And this one was a fantastic bivvy spot. Like dried rivers, there's banks on the side, so we basically pitched the tarp from the bank over us, used the wheels to hold it up. It was quite windy, but it was okay. It was warm, and that night there was I remember waking up in the middle of the night because Rob woke me up, and he was like, "Get the torch, Chris, get the torch, get the torch." And I was like, well, why the fuck? Why do you want the fucking torch, Rob? Like, it's like 4 a.m. or something like that. And we're going to be getting up soon anyway. And I was like, what the fuck's he on about? Anyway, grab the torch, and there's a frog sitting on his foot. And he was adamant. Basically, this frog just kept jumping back on his foot whenever he shook it off. But he was adamant it was like a fox or a wolf or something that was like sniffing his foot. So he thought he was getting attacked. But it was this fucking massive frog that every time he shook it off, boop, jumped back on. But the actual bivvy spot was amazing. The waking up to Rob panicking about a frog was not so amazing. And then a contrast of a bad one was at Badlands, where I was knackered and I just literally wanted to sleep. So just rolled everything out of my bag, set up, got into it, instantly was like, this is not a good place to be, because I could see hundreds of ants. And then, so rolled everything back up, put it all back away, and realized that I just set everything up on top of an ant's nest. I was like, well, good job I noticed that now, not in 10 minutes.
Not in the morning.
Yeah. So that was a bad one. And then another, on contrast, a good one was in Atlas Mountains on the first edition. Like that, the first edition of that race was the same thing. It's one of those races where Nelson likes to make a race really, really bloody hard. And the first edition, I think he makes it extra hard because no one knows what they're going to be signing up for. And it was hard. And the pace going up the first climb out of Marrakesh was insane. Like, to be in the top, I was sort of in the top 20 bunch going up that first climb. And it was like, I was like, this is a road race. This is the pace of a road race. Like, this is insanely fast. People like sprinting around the corners and stuff. And basically, it was the race was effectively to get to the top and down the descent before the sunset. That's what we were racing for. The descent was a donkey track, so you couldn't actually ride a larger portion of it. But then towards the bottom, you could ride it, and then you had the first checkpoint. You get there, first checkpoint, get some food, go. So that's exactly what I did, and then rode off into the night, and basically until I felt. Generally, my stance with the off-road ones are the moment I feel uncomfortable because I can't see where I'm going, and if it feels like quite gnarly off-road, I'm just going to stop. I'm not risking it. I'm not taking unnecessary risks. I'm not going to win these races, and I'm doing them more for the experience. Obviously, there's a competitive element to it. I'm wanting to be competitive, but if I feel like I'm going to be taking several dangerous risks, I'm out. I'm just going to stop for the night. And I think after about the fourth or fifth time of thinking, I'm going to crash, I kind of decided to pull the pin and just get, it's early hours of the morning. So it's like, I'm just going to pull the pin now, get a few hours kit, wait for the sun to come up.
At that point, it's kind of a natural time to grab some rest anyway.
Exactly. And the spot I found was just off the route, literally round, like, I don't know what, 5 minutes, not over that, like a minute around the corner. And there's this massive, like rock. And I was basically, and next to this massive rock was just kind of like sort of shielding where I was from the route, was this big flat bit of rock, perfect bivvy size, perfect, sheltered from a big rock and like a cliff. But the only downside, I say, it was an amazing spot. The only downside to it was that I could hear people coming past, like their brakes screeching and people crashing and stuff like that. So that kind of kept me up quite a bit. And then a couple of times there's people who'd like come and seen that I was around there, or come and looked around there thinking it's a good spot. I'm going, oh shit, someone's here. But yeah, that with the off-road stuff. Pardon?
I'd be awake. Like as soon as I hear anything, I'm like bolt upright.
Yeah, that was the downside of it, that it did meant that I kept waking up, but it was a good spot in terms of comfort more than anything. Which is, I guess that's part of it. I'm not a good sleeper, but I'm also part deaf, so that balances out quite well, Pardon?
It's a good skill to have. So I'm going to do London, Edinburgh, London again, like in August.
Yeah,
and there you've got like dorms where you can kind of go and grab some sleep.
Yeah,
and I did use one on the last edition, but it was a complete clusterfuck. That probably qualifies as one of the worst bivvies. You know, like so I was still like really aggressive race strategy. You know, like I know because I've tested this that I want to sleep for no more than 21 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, this you know, after about 25 minutes, your body releases those chemicals that paralyze the muscles, and if you wake up after that, you feel really groggy and horrible. So 21 minutes is enough for a proper power nap, and I can quite often I'll wake up after 21. Or I set an alarm for 25 minutes, and I'll typically wake up after 12 minutes sleep, which I find a bit weird still. Yeah, on LEL you go in and you say, like, I'm gonna sleep. They do like every 15 minutes they do a wake up call for the people who want it. So they just go around. It's just not bunk beds, like inflatable beds lined up, you know, with blanket and pillow, or whatever. And I remember I went in, I lay down, and I said, look, I just want 25 minutes. And they said, well, we can't do that. We're every 15 minutes. I'm like, okay, all right. Do 30 minutes. That's fine. So I know it'd take me 5 to get there anyway. And then I lay down, and there's so much snoring. I wish I was deaf at the time. This is on the way back, because I didn't sleep at all on the way out. You know, on the way back, you're kind of passing people coming in the opposite direction. So that, you know, there was quite a lot of crowds. I think this might have been Barnard Castle, and then about 10 minutes in, someone comes to wake me up. Like, oh no, sorry, not me. It was Jasmine. Someone came to wake Jasmine up, and she was really pissed at this as well. Like, she was struggling to get to sleep, and and she was going to take a little bit longer to sleep. So I think she was going a little bit longer anyway. And someone came in to wake her up, and I was just laughing. I could hear everything that was going on. And then sort of 15 minutes in, the next guy comes in, and he pops down onto his inflatable. And at that point, I realized I'm quite tall. I'm 6'4", so I realized my feet were actually resting on the pillow part of his inflatable. My feet just catapulted. Yeah. And I just started laughing. I'm like, this is just comedy joke. Like, there's no point. Like, what, you know, someone's going to come and wake me up in 10 minutes. I've got no chance of getting to sleep anyway. So I just got up. That was a pretty terrible bivvy experience. But yeah. So AEL's coming up in August. Looking forward to that. Like, 5 years since the last edition, because it was supposed to be last year, but obviously, you know, things happened last year.
Yeah. It's great that's an event that happens generally would be every 4 years, and it's literally London, Edinburgh, London, and I've had a few friends, a few of my mates did the last edition of it, and they said, yeah, it was tough, but it was, you know, an amazing experience to have done as well. They weren't like racing it; they were doing it to experience it.
Of all the things I've done, I mean, I think it's better than Paris-Brest Paris, even though it's considered more prestigious. Yeah, I mean, it's really amazing, and, you know, especially, you know, like starting from, you know, where I live, and, you know, going up to Scotland and back. It's really cool to see like the full spectrum of the country. But yeah, you do get Scottish weather, and then last edition, you know, like the 24 in 2017. Yeah, I had to deal with hypothermia on the way back because it just rains just non-stop, you know, and you just can't get dry. You know, yeah, super strong, fierce headwind, very cold, very wet. Yeah, I was in a pretty bad shape by the time I got back, and probably the worst shape I've been in after any race, you know, even though it's like by ultra distance standards, it's a sprint. Yeah, you know, it took way longer to recover from that than it did from TCR or TransAm or any of the other long ones. Yeah, I think people often don't fully understand how long these things can take to get over. Like, for me, the worst ones have always been, for me, is the National 24. That's always been the worst, which, as you say, that is a sprint compared to many other races out there. But I think the reason why that one's always been so bad is because it is a very high intensity effort for 24 hours. Badlands, actually, I mean, Badlands was quite bad because I kind of went into it injured and came out of it more injured.
and then I was in Amsterdam for a week doing some stuff with Shimano. And so that wasn't really ideal in terms of recovery time. The reason why I did Badlands and went to Amsterdam was because at the time, the quarantine rules and stuff meant that if I went from Spain to the Netherlands, I wouldn't have to isolate. But if I went from Spain to the UK to the Netherlands, it was 10 days isolation. So I was like, well, it makes sense for me just to go straight there, surely. That was my theory. Obviously testing and everything like that before, during, after, everything there. But yeah, just to me, it was a weird rule, and I somehow found a way of getting around that weirdness by just going straight to Amsterdam. Didn't matter that I was British citizen. The fact that I was coming from Spain and going there, they didn't seem to have an issue with it, which is kind of strange. But that one, I think maybe physically took a while to get over, mainly because of this injury problem I had, which I've been dealing with on and off last year from July. So even the fact that I managed to finish it was, and as far as I was concerned, that was an achievement. Didn't really care about position or anything. I just wanted to finish it, and I did. So I was quite happy with that. But the 24 has always been the ones that have really shelled me for weeks, not days, weeks, getting over those ones. But I mean, it's part of the parcel of why we do it.
Yeah, I mean, it is a bit of yin and yang. If it wasn't that tough, you wouldn't value it as much. I mean, that's exactly it. The reason I love the long distance stuff, and the longer the better, because it just exaggerates everything. Massive highs, massive lows, and when you're fatigued, and sleep deprived, you're way more. Your experiences are much more polarized. You'll hit these peak highs and then big troughs, and sometimes in the same day, the same afternoon. But the tough ones, the tough times, they don't. You kind of take the kind of the good bits out of those tough times. The lessons and the kind of the confidence that it gives you that you've lived through that. But the kind of the pain of those tough times fades quite relatively quickly. Yeah. Whereas those peak kind of high experiences, they, I mean, Christ, I relive those weekly. I really value that. I really cherish those experiences. So yeah.
Yeah. So it's I always think about the 24. I think the moment that I will always remember from doing them when I did them was the second time I did it in 2018. When I was cooked at the end of it, and Jimmy, being Jimmy, was like, "Go on, sort yourself out, go get yourself a shower," all that kind of crap. Being very Jimmy, and I walked off, went into the village hall bit, which was a different village hall to where it was in 2019, but went to the village hall bit and went in there, got a shower, collapsed because I was fucked, and it was the heat from the shower.
I remember the YouTube vid on that one. Yeah.
And then Jimmy
photos for that one as well.
Yeah, and then Jimmy had to go and find me and was just like, note to self, never let someone out of my sight who's just done a 24-hour race. And those kind of things are just you remember the weird things like that. I remember talking about peanut butter with Michael Broadwhip going around on the 24 on the nighttime circuit, because we were riding at the same pace for some reason, and we were just talking about having peanut butter sandwiches, and that was it. And we talked about it for probably an hour, but it was quite a moment. And then if I think about Badlands, I remember I think it was the last day that I had riding, and I went the wrong way, 30 kilometers the wrong way.
Wow.
In total, it's 15k off and then 15k to get back on the route. And I descended down a mountain basically, and I was like, this is glorious. I was getting really emotional about it, welling up, and I was in tears and stuff. And then my mate Toby, Cold Up North Toby, basically called me up and was like, please check your route right now, because I think it's wrong, because he's watching on the tracker. And for some reason my route had it mapped me the wrong way, taking me off route. I don't know why. Definitely a user error, definitely something I'd done wrong. But basically, my route had taken me 15 kilometers in the wrong direction, missing out. I think what probably happened is I missed a turn and it just recalculated and I hadn't seen it. And so I was just like, fuck, so pissed off, rode all the way back. I rode back so hard up this mountain. I'd probably lost like 10 places because I was in a section that was quite close. There's like lots of riders were around the same time. And I probably lost like 5 or 10 places. And I was just like, fuck, there's nothing I can do about this now. There's literally nothing I can do about it apart from be pissed off. And then you're on this like gravelly section and then the road has wiped out and there's no way. Then basically you had to climb down this like cliff face with your bike, walk probably about 5 steps and then climb back up the cliff face from the other side because there's no road. I was pissed off because I made the wrong turn. And that happened. I was really pissed off. And I got to the finish and the finish point wasn't clear. Like it was like you're going down a descent through this town. I was like, I know this is the finish town, so I'm going to go for it slowly. But the finish was a sharp, like right turn back on itself. But there wasn't anything clear. There was no sign or anything. Well, there was a sign, but it wasn't very clear. And so I'd ridden past it. But luckily, I saw another rider who came and was like, "You've gone past it. You've gone past it. It's back there." And I got to the finish, and the guys that organised it were David and Carlos. And I was like, "You guys are bastards." And David was just like, "I will get you a beer." And I was like, "Mate, I don't drink." And he was like, "I think you want one now, though." And I was like, "Yes, I do actually."
Yeah. It's like end of the TCI, Matt was waiting for me in 2016. And that was sort of similar. Like I'd had like quite an adventure. It felt, well, in my head at least, I'd concocted this story. I'd made a little movie in my head that this was this amazing finish. Like 40 kilometers to go, I think it was. My Achilles, basically, it was hanging on by a single sinew, all the way from Italy to Turkey, and then sort of turning the corner on the route that time, down towards the finish line was 40 k's to go, climbing a hill, and I could just feel like my Achilles just went. So I'm still clipped in, but I'm just pedaling with only putting the power down through one leg, and then and I'd worked hard the last sort of 36 hours. Like one here, I think we'd done like 700, 800 kilometers. Trying to charge hard to make the finish party after a few setbacks, and I'd overtaken a bunch of guys to get there. People who told me like, "No chance, you're not going to make it now. Like, there's just not enough time left." I'm like, okay, all right then. So off you go. Just charging, and then that Achilles went, and fortunately I'd climbed the last major hill, and like we just took enough of a corner. There was a bit of a tailwind, so I can kind of soft pedal it. I can nurse it in, and 2 sets of pairs came past me. These guys that I like encouraged to kind of like keep going overnight. When we'd kind of cross paths and stuff, I'm like, they were going to stop. I'm like, no, you're so close. You got to go. And then they caught up with me and started passing me, and they passed me so fast. I was devastated. I mean, I wasn't even racing in a different category, but like, in your kind of sleep deprived state, you make these kind of little mini challenges and things. And I was gutted that they overtook me. And the finish on this race was, so we had to cross the Dardanelles, like this body of water between like sort of European Turkey and Asian Turkey. And there were 3 possible ferries. Most people were taking this middle one. That was kind of the fastest way to go. But that ran every, I think every 15, 20 minutes or so. And there was one a little bit further south, and it only ran every half an hour, but it was a relatively short crossing. I remember like I could see on the tracker, I'm pedaling as hard as I possibly can. I'm on one leg. And I could see on the tracker that these guys were still waiting on the dock. They hadn't left the ferry yet. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go because I've got nothing to lose. So I just absolutely buried myself. And at some point, the one like shin that was still working, that got so bad that I had to swap and went back to the original one that caused me all that trouble in the first place. and I kind of did the last sort of 30, 35 on that one. And I'm absolutely flying. And I get to this ferry, and the I can see like the ferry's there. Like this might actually work. I'm checking the tracker, like they're still docked. This is going to work. I get to this little like porter cabin, and I'm like, there's my card, you know. And he's like, oh no, we don't take cards. It's cash only. And I've been in Turkey 3 hours. I've got no Turkish currency.
Yeah.
And my heart just sank. And he looked at me and he's like, go on. So I'm just straight through. And I mean, there's not a lot of health and safety out there. So like the ferry is literally pulling away, and I'm skidding into like, you know, over the gangway onto the ferry. And as soon as I stop, I turn around and there's like a meter gap, you know, like half a second later, you know, it just wouldn't have happened. And so I get onto this ferry, and I'm like, I hadn't actually thought where the actual finish line is, because it's like, I don't know, 500 meters off the dock.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know, by that point, my race is kind of going to be done, so I don't really need to worry too much about. And then my phone ran out of juice, but I knew like we were likely to dock at the same time. And then I was running up. I charged my phone in as quickly as I could. I couldn't really get anything into it. And then we dock, and I spot them in the distance. They docked at the same time. They're not aware that I'm still racing them. Frankly, they probably don't even care that I'm racing them.
Yeah.
They're not being idiots. But I just sprinted straight past them, and like just the most heroic moment in my mind. And came around the corner to this monument that was the finish line. And there was Matt waiting for me with a kebab and a beer. And I was jubilant, you know. I'd won my little mini competition that no one else was aware they were competing against.
Yeah.
And I struggled. I mean, I'm absolutely a shell of a man. And because I'd also been nursing like this chest infection. I've been coughing up blood since Bosnia. So like quite a long way, like 3-4 days of, you know, very, very sick, very ill.
Yeah.
And I was kind of helped off the bike. And someone asked me quite quickly, like, how do you feel? And I'm like, oh, fucking like death. And they're like, would you do it again? I was like, yes. No hesitation. You know, like however bad it gets. And it was super, super bad. I should have stopped. I know this now. I should have scratched ages ago. But yeah, like, I mean, just gut reaction, like, absolutely, hell yes, I'm back next year.
Yeah.
There's just something about these real kind of high highs and low lows that are just so addictive.
It's such a strange thing to explain to people who haven't been in that situation, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't want to cheapen the experience of soldiers, but the closest thing I can kind of grasp on is this idea of people who've been in combat together, and, you know, they've shared this insane experience relative to them. I mean, you know, we're just doing a bike ride at the end of the day. This is not like going into war. But I think the end result feels different. You get this bond of people who've shared this extreme experience that, frankly, it's difficult to describe. As much as I try in the blogs and stuff, it's hard to really give a proper full sense of the experience that you go through. Only people who've really done it have that full understanding. So you get some really, really tight bonds. And I made some amazing friends doing ultra distance.
Yeah, there's a really very caring community that really looks after each other. And like I've always sort of said, that's not my sole focus. I like to try and dibble and dabble in everything, whether that's, you know, racing time trials as competitively as I can, to doing, you know, cross races. Fuck doing crits. You can have that one. And remember what I think might be your last crit. I remember there was blood there as well. My last crit, my last crit was 4 years ago. There was blood. Lee Valley got taken out with several other people, and I think someone went off in an ambulance, and I had my shoulder and butt on show because the skin suit shredded open on my right butt cheek. So I had a like cut up butt cheek with my butt hanging out, and all the shoulder had ripped up. Basically, I rode off the front at the start of the race because I don't really have much of a sprint, but I can time trial, and so I was like, fuck it, I'm going to time trial it. And yeah, you completely get that. and I felt super comfortable. And then I felt slightly confident. So I was like, okay, actually, I fancy myself in a sprint for once. That never happens. And I wish I'd just stayed riding off the front because I probably would have won. And instead, I sat up, let myself get absorbed again. And then there was a crash caused at Lee Valley we were going, well, I can't think of where we were going now. We were going basically coming up. So the velodrome was on your right-hand side. And there's a slight uphill drag.
Around that last left, dropping down into the final corner. Yeah.
Well, the crash happened around the corner next to the velodrome, where a chap had gone off the circuit, swung back on the circuit in front of the peloton and taken out the front of the peloton. And, quite a lot of friends had come just to go and watch the race and stuff. And basically, I didn't go across the finish line because I was somewhere underneath a pile of bikes. And I've not done one since.
No, I mean, I've been lucky so far. I've raced for a few years now, but then I tend to try and avoid the really choppy ones. So like Cat 3, 4 stuff at Lee Valley. Not so keen, frankly. I do the Masters because I'm old enough. But when I first started that, I thought, okay, well, I'm 40 now. I can I qualify for the old man racing. But if it's too easy, I'll drop down. I don't want to just sort of go hang for points. Holy shit, it's not easy.
The thing with Masters is that the people that race in the Masters have got the money and the time and
the experience.
Yeah, they know how to ride a bike.
It's insane. There's no categories, so you're racing E12s, like most of the field that I'm racing are second cat, first cat, or elites.
Yeah.
And the guys who've been doing it for 20 years, they know their stuff, and geez, they got some engines. So it's really fierce, like properly fierce, close, aggressive, but aggressive in a good way, not like a Larry way. So even though it's that close and aggressive, I feel perfectly safe. I've only had like a couple of minor moments in Masters racing, and then like earlier in the year, I started doing Masters and then dropping into the 2, 3, 4 racing afterwards. So back-to-back races.
Yeah.
Jesus, the difference. It's terrifying. Even with Cat, I'm Cat 2 now, so I I have like I joke about this. I got like Cat 2 threshold, Cat 5 sprint. So I'm absolutely useless at Cat 2 racing, because it's punchy.
Yeah.
So I don't know how successful I'm going to be at Cat 2 racing. Frankly, I can't train or recover like I used to. Do very lifestyle stuff now. Being a dad and stuff like that. Just it's punchy. So I might try and do a bit more time trials maybe, although I don't have a proper TT rig, and it's hard to get stuck in if you're not going to be competitive.
Yeah, my starts with my plan this year is a bit. I've got some big sort of charity challenges that I'm going to do this year. The first one will be next month, which is I won't say what it is because that will come soon. I'll tell you privately, but I won't say it on podcast time what it is yet because I'm still finalizing things. But then basically my winter plan is I'm going to just do hill climbs and cyclocross because I've never, ever done hill climbing and I'm not the build for it. I just like the idea of doing it as a change. That's literally it. And
it depends on the course. You get a short enough course that needs big power. Power to weight is obviously a thing. As a bigger guy, you're probably not going to be troubling the podium, I guess, unless it's a really, really short course. But
I did the Swains Lane one, and that has it's well over 100, 200 people enter it, something crazy. And I came 20th in that, but I did also I did rock up to the Swains Lane one on an S5 with 80mm carbon rims and a skin suit and an aero helmet because I was like, it's a sprint. It's not a hill climb. It's a sprint. You want to be on the fastest kit you've got. So that was my stance. was like, I'm 80 kilos. I'm going to be 20 kilos heavier than the lightest people doing this. So I've got to go down the route of raw power.
Not really going to move the needle, is it?
Yeah, I have to go down the route of raw power as opposed to being able to, be light. And so that was my stance. And I came, 20th, I think it was. And I was like, okay, that was good fun. Minus the tasting blood and coughing up and everything at the end. Yeah.
Hill climbs is definitely not for me. I really struggle with all the the historic knee injuries and stuff. My max power, I just don't have the muscle. Like I don't have the strength anymore.
Yeah.
I rely on the lungs. If it's a 2-hour climb, we get out to Tenerife and we're racing up Tavy, then we can talk.
Yeah.
I might be able to do something there, but no, these punchy power climbs. I'm relatively lean, but I'm tall, so I'm like 82 kilos.
Yeah,
it's heavy. It's quite heavy for climbing stuff, and I don't have that explosive power. Also because you spend so many years doing ultra distance, like it's long, steady, zone 2, zone 3, maybe. You build different types of muscles. They're kind of efficient, but not necessarily super powerful.
Yeah, and I think that's why, like, I've never been a one-trick pony. I've always been pretty good at everything. Like, I can cross over to most stuff. Like, I would always. It's only the last couple of years that I haven't, but I normally would race cross or winter because it's so good for like just your top end stuff and riding around with your heart rate at like 180, 190, 200 beats a minute because I've got no choice. That's what you got to do. And also really good for your bike handling. And we've seen it in the World Tour how, it's so many references. Like everyone will say Van der Poel, Van Aert and Pidcock, but like you look before that and you had like Stibar doing it, Marianne Vos, like there's so many riders that have done it over the years and it's been a known thing. It's just that it happens to be in vogue now that people think it's the right thing to do. Basically, my dog's being attention seeking, so I'm giving him a stroke. I've done it for years. I've always raced cross over the winter. It's only the last couple of years because of everything that's happened that I haven't, and I don't technically have a cross bike right now. I have a gravel bike, but not quite a cross bike. Cervélo do make a cross bike. So, please. Like I've always thought like mixing, for me, it just keeps things interesting as well. It's like not just focusing. The bit with like doing like the National 24s, it basically becomes the thing that I focus on from January until the race, and I get bored. But like since I haven't done it the last few years, I've like mixed things up and tried different things here and there. It's meant I've kept excited about what I'm doing and kind of enjoying it a bit more, which is ultimately a good thing.
The main thing.
Yeah, exactly. We do, at the end of the day, we ride our bikes for fun. We're not really, effectively paid to do it. I mean, you could argue, I'm very lucky to have certain sponsors that do help with that kind of thing, but we're not like a world tour cyclist or whatever who's paid fundamentally to race and ride and take risks and stuff. I've still got to come home. I've still got to pay the electricity bill, which has gone silly expensive, and heating bills, which have gone silly expensive. Like I still got to come home and do all that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to do anything stupid, but ultimately they're big kids' toys for us. That's always the best way I could think of describing it.
That's how I describe it as well. I think I'm sure someone famous kind of mentioned this as a quote, like about how bikes are the toy that you get to play with as an adult, legitimately.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
So as you can tell, I've got company now.
Look at him.
The young Marshall has come to say hi because he is being needy. But one of the things I do really want to cover and talk a little bit about is something that you're involved with that's quite exciting, that I've been kind of keeping tabs on for a while because you've kind of like been drop feeding it here and there, is Velomatch.
Yeah, sure.
Now, the reason why I find this exciting, because I get to build up really cool bikes on it. That's basically fundamentally what I quite like. Like I've got the website open in front of me right now, which is velomatch.com. And I've just gone, onto Find Your Bike, and technically I've actually just got to start again because I keep doing it. And I've gone, so I can go gravel. I have a bike that fits me. I know what my bike is that fits me. I could choose the year, the bike, the size, and then I like that it then comes up with a selection of different options that you could look at. So you can literally go, I want this one in a blah, blah, blah size, and you can inquire about it. And I believe if I'm correct, this inquiry will then go to different retailers or dealers.
Yeah. So, to kind of basically describe it. So it's a cycling marketplace. So rather than heading off to like different websites to try and find a bike, I mean, even if you don't know what bike you need or want, the goal with Velomatch is to try and help you figure out what bike suits you best.
Yeah.
Including sizing. So my co-founder Barry, he ran bespoke cycling like chain, London cycling chain for 15 years, and had just so many people coming in saying, "What can I do with this bike? Or what can I sell this bike and upgrade it for one that fits? Because I've only had it a few months, but it's the wrong size." I mean, it's super common. And if you speak to any bike fitter, they'll have countless stories of people who come in, and there's only so much you can do. You can only slam on such a certain size stem. Bikes. Some bikes are just the wrong size for people. So the first thing it tries to do is to make sure that you just can't buy a bike that doesn't fit you. And the gold standard for this stuff is to have a bike fit. Chances are most of your audience will appreciate the value of a proper bike fit. But it's hard to convince people starting their cycling journey. Chances are you bought a bike, first bike, maybe second bike, before you had a bike fit.
Yeah,
I did.
I bought my first bike was a Specialized Alley, which was a size 58, and I bought it secondhand because it was like 100 quid. And my second bike was a Focus Izalco that was a size 54, so it was the size I do ride. And that was secondhand from a friend's dad, and I bought it because I thought I always thought it was a really cool looking bike. He had it for quite a while, and then he said he was going to sell it, so I bought it off him. But I bought it basically because he was like, "Yeah, 54 should kind of fit you." He's about the same height as me, a little bit shorter, but he's like, "Yeah, it should work for you." But yeah, the first bike I had was a size 58. I'm 5'11", like. That's a big bike for me.
I'd ride a 58 in certain brands. This is one of the key problems we've got.
Exactly.
What is a 58? A 58 means nothing to anybody. In theory, it's a 58 centimeter top tube. In reality, it's often not.
Yeah.
It vary all over the place. And the top tube is only one little component of it. It doesn't take into account what happens from the front of the bike to where you're actually holding on. That's what matters. You don't hold the frame, you hold the handlebars. And it's really complicated. So I understand why the cycling industry hasn't solved this one yet. The manufacturers and the brands, they don't want to touch this with a barge pole because it's really, really difficult and really complicated. So the whole point of Velomatch, or certainly where we've started, is to do all that legwork for the brands, for the shops, for people buying bikes, so they don't have to worry about that. If you've got bike fit data, magic, that's the gold standard. If not, if you've got a bike, say like your 54 Izalco, if that's comfortable for you, punch that in, and then we can kind of back solve that. We can do all the funky maths in the background and figure out from that, these are all the bikes in all the sizes that suit you. Some you might want to change a stem to make it fit perfectly. And you'd be amazed. Sometimes it's really, really common for 2 sizes to fit. It's not uncommon for 3 different sizes to be able to hit the contact points that you need.
That's interesting.
And even for me, like how do I choose? Christ, 3 sizes can fit. How do you choose which one you should actually be buying? There's no right or wrong answer, but there's a lot of information that can kind of guide you down the right path, because let's be honest, they're not cheap toys.
No.
So you want to make the right decision, or you definitely do not want to make the wrong decision. So there's loads of different advice there to help you figure out, based on your cycling kind of trajectories and things like this, which size suit you.
It's interesting because, like, I say I ride a 54. Sorry to butt in. I ride a size 54, but I could easily ride a 56 if I wanted to. But the reason why I choose a 54 is I like the fact of how it feels to ride. It feels a bit more nippy. It feels a bit more agile. To whenever I've jumped to the 56, I've always been like, this just doesn't feel so responsive. That's always been my feeling with it. But I have, I'm very lucky to have my relationship with Cervélo, and it allows me to have a variety of being able to customize things in them, like stem lengths and stuff, quite easily, because I can get hold of that. So my Aspero 5, my gravel bike, I ride a 120 stem. My R5 and my Caledonia 5, I ride a 130. That's a long stem, which does make you go, oh, maybe I should be riding a bigger bike. But in learning of my bike fit information, a big part of that is I've got long limbs. I have long arms and long legs, but I have a really short torso, and I also have an over-flexible back. So being slightly further forward for me is way more comfortable than being hunched in on a shorter stem. But also this is that whole balance of like, oh, you could ride a 56 or you could ride a 54. But long and short of it is I like the feel of a 54 over a 56.
Yeah, there you go. I when my Canyon broke, the frame snapped in a crib, and I need to replace that. And I went for a Trek Madone, and I had what would have been the equivalent of like 58 on a Canyon, and I was keen to get the same thing, this kind of short bike, long stem, racy feel, and just couldn't do it. Couldn't make the Madone work, mostly because of the saddle height. Like I'm all legs. I'm like a T-Rex. So I needed to go up. Even on the 60, like the size 60 Madone, you swap it for like a tall seat mast, so the maximum height, and I've got about 5 mil left tolerance, before I run out of seat post. So I'm on a quite a big trek. But even then, like trying to calculate, I had bike fit data, but trying to figure out what the geometries, to recreate that on this bike, we got relatively close, but it's so complicated. There's so many little bits at the front of the bike that are just hard to find the data for.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not right. Even kind of knowing all this stuff in the past, still not right. So that's another thing. Like if we'd have made Velomatch, 2 years ago when I bought that, I'd have been able to see exactly the setup that I needed to kind of nail those numbers, or how close I can get. So I see now, like my bar tape, it's starting to roll forwards a little bit. It's a sign that I'm kind of reaching a little bit too far, and I can just tell after years of riding that the fit's not quite there. So
yeah, and it's bike fit is very personal. Like as working with a bike fitter is ultimately, as you say, is the best thing you can do, because you can sort of tailor what you want to do with that bike, how you're going to use it. Like if you're going to use it for racing, or you're going to use it for like long distance stuff. But my fits on my bikes are all slightly tailored depending on that, but they're all the main contact points are very similar effectively. But a lot of that also comes down to the geometry of the bike. So the Caledonia 5 is, Cervélo's bike, which they word as being a long, a silly bike for silly adventures is what they call it. So it's got a much bigger head tube than any of the other bikes. And so my position on that is just more upright because of the way that the frame's designed. It is designed to be a bit more relaxed in its fit. And that, to be honest, is a bike which they would say is probably the bike for 90% of people. It's designed to be comfortable. It's not super aggressive. It's not like super racy or anything. It's got a low bottom bracket, so it's super stable. It's like when you see people who've got really racy bikes, like the one that always comes to my mind is like a Pinarello with loads of headset spacers, and it just doesn't look right. And I don't mean to judge anyone who has that, but that's probably a case where someone's purchased a bike that doesn't quite work for themselves. So there's plenty of options out there now, being able to provide those options. And like I've just built myself up a Caledonia in the really nice, like bluey teal color with Dura-Ace Di2 12-speed with power meter, and a set of lightweight Autobahn wheels and a disc wheel on the back, because why the hell not?
Damn, yeah, if you can, you should. Yeah. Oh, sorry, you're talking about the bike builder. Gotcha.
Yeah. I'm on your bike builder.
Right. I thought, like, let me just go and show you it. Here it is. I'll just wheel it out.
No, I'm on your bike builder.
Now it makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, there's a separate sort of side to Velomatch. This is more of a play thing at the moment, but yeah, there's this kind of bike selection stuff that helps you figure out what to buy in the right size, and then we connect you with retailers who've got it. Very, very soon, sneak peek, we're about to push live stock. So instead of kind of waiting for inquiries like your insurance comparison sites and stuff like that, this is instant. Immediately this is in stock and it's good to go, or it's coming, in this size, or but yeah, the sort of really fun side of things is this like configurator to just build up just insane bikes. Yeah, I mean it's ridiculously popular. It's not the core part of the website, but my God, if you do a pie chart of where people spend their time, and it's just a whole big pie of bike builder, because it's fun.
It is fun.
Yeah. So yeah, you can build all sorts of stuff on there, and we're quite cool. We get all like the latest bikes go on there the day they come out. So sprint.
It's really cool seeing the variety of brands that are on there. So I can see where are we? BMC, Bianchi, Cannondale, Cervélo, Colnago, Felt, Villiers, Parley, Specialized. There's kind of all the major brands are there and available to look at, and Pinarello. I'm just like scrolling through now.
We're adding stuff constantly as well, and then not many people actually use it to legitimately spec a bike to build, but you can do that. It is there, and there's like an inquire button at the end, and we've got a few retailers who are capable of building like such a bespoke bike. It's tricky at the moment with supply chain issues. Obviously trying to get proper a la carte. Your choice of everything is quite tough, but the retailer's doing quite a good job. They'll help you figure out if something's missing. These alternatives are in stock or coming, and these are the options. But yeah, personally, my pockets aren't quite that deep. I use it mostly for fun. I just build my dream garage with it.
It's a really exciting tour, as you say, not just in the sense that you are it's allowing people to, because I believe that one of the biggest mistakes that does happen is people will buy bikes and they're just the wrong size, or they whether that's they haven't been educated or understood what the size should be for them. Maybe they've been missold a size. Like the fact that you're providing
the worst scenario is that they don't even realize they're on the wrong size, and they're riding around on an uncomfortable bike, just not enjoying it, that's all. Cycling is amazing, and we definitely don't want people having like a shit experience and being put off because they've been sold the wrong bike, or they've naively bought the wrong bike, because it's complicated. Like I say, it's so complicated that the cycling industry hasn't figured out how to help people do this until now.
Yeah. And the other thing is also bearing in mind the usage of the bike. Like I covered briefly, I always go back and relate to Cervélo's range because I know it really well. You've got the S5, which is an out and out racing bike designed to be as fast as possible. The R5, which is basically built up as like a super lightweight climbing bike, but would probably be kind of classed a bit more of an all-round bike. Caledonia, Cervélo call it their bike for silly rides. That is a great long distance or multi-day ride. The Aspero gravel bike, then you can look down the TT bike ranges, and it's also, I guess, an element of it is knowing what type of bike is right for you. Like, yes, you might like an R5, but actually you might be better suited to the geometry and fit of the Caledonia or even the Aspero, you might be wanting to do a bit more off-road. The question I get asked a lot is like, I'm looking at purchasing a Cervélo, and I get quite a few messages asking and asking like my opinion on what they should go for. So quite often the question that comes up is, how tall are you? I'll be like, oh yeah, 5'11". What size do you ride? 54, but I can also ride a 56. I could also probably ride a 58. That's a bit on the big side, but I could probably even get away with a 52 if I really wanted to, but don't take my sizing into account because that's personal. And then the next question is normally, should I go for a Caledonia or an Aspero? Because they're probably the two most popular bikes in the Cervélo range at the moment. And I'm normally like, well, what do you want to use it for? Like, do you want to go off road? Do you want a bike that you can use all year round because you can mount mud guards on it? Like, what do you actually want to do? And sometimes it's like, oh, you know, I might just ride some like loose compact gravel here and there, but I kind of want a bike I can ride all the time. I was like, okay, probably better looking at the Caledonia over the Aspero then, because you want to use it all year. You've got the mudguard mounts. You can put like a 32 gravel tire on it if you want to. And or flip side, it'd be like, yeah, you know, a recent one I had was like, yeah, I want to go and do like Dale's Divide or something. And I'm like, yeah, if you want to do some proper like gnarly off-road stuff, go for the Aspero. Don't use a Caledonia as an off-road bike for that. It's not designed for it. And then, as you say, it comes down to geometry.
Yeah. So, well, yeah, like you say, like, and things like features, you know, being able to fit proper mudguards and stuff like that, you know. Yeah, I mean, the next phase of what we're doing, well, we're just about to launch our e-bike version of this.
Amazing.
And it's got a more powerful, it's called a product finder quiz, that kind of, in human terms, like you've just described, these conversations that you have, you know, like, you're probably like me, you're like the cycling mate. When someone wants to buy a bike, they come to you and like, Chris, I need to do it. And we're trying to bottle that basically. And for e-bikes, it's even more challenging because most people in the UK, at least, buying e-bikes, they're not cyclists. They're replacing trains or cars and things like that. So that's an even more complicated product, and they're coming in completely fresh. So we built like this kind of this human kind of language quiz to kind of guide people through in real questions. How are you going to use it? What do we need from it? And then we turn that into like proper results. And we'll do the same thing with the road side of things as well, because that's getting more and more complex and more niche and a little bit harder to navigate. So yeah, we want to try and be that sort of cycling buddy that you go to when you need that sort of advice.
Yeah,
it's important to say, like, on the fit side of things, like, this is definitely not replacing bike fit.
Yeah,
we value bike fit. We would recommend a bike fit before you buy a bike, frankly. But we recognize that most people, including you and I, just don't do that. That's not the real experience. So the best we can try to do is to make sure you're not buying the wrong bike. And then if you want to get that precision, we do still recommend a bike fit.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's a really good tool to give you I've always thought, like, in the past, I've gone to websites where you can like put in the geometry of your bike and compare it, and it's just not very clear, not very obvious. And unless you understand the terminology of the geometry of a bike, it's also kind of a bit of a mind fuck. It's quite confusing. When the fact that with Velomatch, you can just go, okay, if you know your bike fit, here's the information, bosh. If you know the size bike that works for you, here it is, bosh. And then you're given the solutions there. It's really useful, really, really useful. I think you've done a very good job.
Thanks, buddy. Still work in progress. Still feels like early days, and there's so many features that we can't really talk about too much, but there's just so much stuff coming over the next year or two to bump this up.
Yeah, of course. It's a watch this space kind of job, isn't it?
Yeah. But the big one for me, I don't know when you'll publish it, but like when we go live with livestock, that's going to be a game changer.
How long is that aiming to go live? Do you know?
I think a difficult one to pin down, but I would love to say end of the week.
Oh, that soon, potentially.
Yeah, potentially that soon. It might be. Yeah, I mean, everything's there in the background. We're literally just dotting I's and crossing T's. But That I think that especially now, while supply is so difficult, just to not have to go through 20 different stores and be told, nah, sorry, not in this size. Oh, but you can have one that's 2 sizes bigger if you want. You know, just all in one place. Yeah, just to see what's out there and when. I think it's going to be a game changer for people. But that's what's coming next.
Amazing. I would like to care about that by just going to people who are listening. Go and check out Velomatch. You can find it on social media. You can find it on velomatch.com. Is that right?
That's right.
Thank God for that. Go have a play around with if you're thinking about getting a new bike, have a look at it as a potential option to show you options that are available. This whole livestock feature is going to be something that could be incredibly useful, especially at a point when there is NAFL bikes available. And also go just build up your dream bike. Like I just built up one with a road bike with a disc wheel, because why not? Yeah, exactly. And you can see it in front of you. I couldn't afford that. A set of lightweight wheels. Gee whiz, I'm not made of money. Darren, thank you so much for your time. I'm conscious that I've used your brain for a lot of time, and I'm also conscious I've got a dog that is looking like he wants to go for a wee. So I've managed to distract him with various chews for the last 10, 15, 20 minutes or so, and now he's staring at me like, wait, come on, it's time to go. Marshall, come here. Right, I'm going to end that.